welcome back to the Wolverine Live. I'm John Borton. Like to think of myself as a little bit young at heart, but the guy that joins me every week, I guarantee you is young at heart. Tom Crawford. Well, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Always great. Always
to the
great.
Wolverine Live. But I saw this picture of Tom this week, and here he is, crack at dawn, laying down the turns, as he likes to say, slalom skiing on the water. He's surrounded in this big halo of water, and I'm just, this is a guy. Remember, I'm not saying anything about age necessarily, but the man did watch Cassie Russell play at Yost Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
And so he's still getting it done, and he gets it done on Press Pass on Sunday nights with Jack Ebling. You can see him there. You can watch him on his own broadcasting network. So, Tom, great to have you with us.
Well, the key thing for me, I'm going to be 67 in several weeks, and I want to ski till I'm 80. But I keep humming the victors every time I go down the course. You know what I mean? That imaginary slalom course, and I'm cutting it up. I'm humming the victors. That's one of my go-tos. And the summer, I can't wait for fall to get here. You know how bad. I mean, I'm just foaming at the mouth for this 2023 Michigan football season to get here. But I'm not gonna wish summer away. And getting on the water, a day on the water. Any day you're on the water is a good day. That's just, and you're on the water a lot. I mean, you live on the water. It's just it cures all evils. That's the way I look at it.
I would live on the water if my wife would go along. I'd probably ditch the house and get a houseboat and travel up and down.
Yeah. There you go.
So anyway, enough of that. We're gonna look tonight at Michigan football. We've been doing it for several weeks. We could do it every time we get together, and we do it most of the time. But I've got this question, Tom, that has been really in the back of my mind lately, and I want to pitch it to you to start to kick things off, as it were, on our Michigan football discussion. Jim Harbaugh has gone through 8 seasons here, and one of the things that I really wonder about is these last 2 years, far and away the best that he's put in. Obviously, the best the Wolverines have put in. You've got the Big Ten championship. You got the wins over Ohio State. You got the playoff breakthrough right after a time where he was starting to be really questioned. Is he ever going to get it done here? Mm-hmm. So the question that has arisen in the back of my mind is simply this: are these last 2 years sort of the culmination of everything that he has done, the program that he has built over the course of those years? Or is it more of a matter of, you got a half a dozen years in and it was like, okay, this is not working to the level we needed to. We're going to change some things, and we're going to take this up a notch.
Mm-hmm. Great question. But an easy answer from me. It's the latter. I mean, when you go, we'll go back to late December 2014. We were all excited. How many years is it going to take Jim Harbaugh to get to the CFP, to beat Ohio State, blah, blah, blah. And, obviously the 15 season was decent, albeit the Woggy has trouble with the snap, but they had a big bowl win. His only bowl win he's had at Michigan, postseason game he's had at Michigan that he's won. But, and then 16 comes, and we thought, oh my God, just the second year this is happening, and then that bad spot, Michigan got screwed on, let's be real. And then all of a sudden you got the kind of the sputtering thing. 2017, 2018 had a little bit, had a rough start, and then, that Notre Dame loss, and then all of a sudden good in the middle, and then ended badly. And then the 19 team, had some moments, but, got rolled by Ohio State again. And then the 2020 season was that for Harbaugh, and this is, a year that changed, all of our lives in some degree. And it's hard to to pick that one out as saying that turning point, but that, that COVID year and that Michigan's pathetic play against Michigan State. And then, they only played a few games and then they called it. And just hearing from great sources, just the locker room dynamics and the cultural thing. And you and I had conversations. I think I said to you, this is not working. This is just not working. And then the flirtations for the next couple of years with the NFL. But it was Big Ten Media Day prior to the 21 season. It was a different Jim Harbaugh, John. I mean, I think you and I talked about it. I mean, he lost weight. He was vibrant. He was talking about rivals. He was open to discussions in the scrum with the media. He wasn't real, stoic or standoffish about some of the questions, or he wasn't getting irked or anything like that. And his team had it with Aiden Hutchinson. I remember he was one of the representatives, and Hassan Haskins. And I go, there's something different going on here. There's something freaking different. And he made different, he made some coaching changes. And I know for a fact that it was a different environment inside the walls of Schembechler Hall culturally. And it showed on the field. And they were more physical. And it's the latter. Jim Harbaugh made some changes about him, I think, on his personal life, and then it rolled into his how his approach with his team, and some really, really good hires. Sharon Moore, and we're going to talk about that pretty soon. It was all good. It was all good, and I commend him. Now, I'm not saying that he's a perfect coach, but man, there's not too many coaches I'd rather have right now. I can't believe I'm saying this, than Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
He's done a terrific job these last 2 years. There's no denying.
And here's the fascinating thing. I almost guarantee you that Jim Harbaugh, if you asked him that question, would say, well, this is, it's a result of the program that we put in place in 2015 and have been building toward this ever since. And, you get you mentioned it. You had that feeling like, wow, this is going to work right away. Now he had exceeding talent from Brady Hoke, who did a good job of recruiting.
True.
You had the Jabril Peppers and some of those guys,
Jake Butt,
that almost had the breakthrough in 2016. And you went through that whole history. I think that I agree with you. I think he made some changes to get them to the next level, but I do think he came here with a lot of good ideas and a lot of success behind him. You don't take a team to the Super Bowl in the NFL without being a great coach. You don't do what he did in turnarounds in Stanford and all without being able to coach football. I do think this. I mean, a lot of what we heard in those early years is, man, he runs it like a pro program, and that people like that in the sense that, okay, well, guys that want to get to the NFL will embrace that because it gets them ready for it. But I wonder about some things that were involved in that at the time, because I mean, for all the tributes that you can give to NFL life and NFL play, one of them is these guys know that if they get hurt, they're not going to get paid. They're done, and they can at the pro level they learn how to save themselves a little bit. There may have been, in my mind, some of that going on, and I've talked to some sources that maybe in big moments even they might have been. There were certain individuals that might have been saving themselves for the professional ranks. I don't think you see that anymore. I think that Jim Harbaugh, maybe in the midst of that nadir, which was 2020, realized that a couple things. He had to have guys that were completely all in on the college level were solely invested in winning for Michigan. He had that in Aiden Hutchinson, the perfect guy that would be that leader and say enough is enough, and we're not going to have this anymore. And this is what it's going to be like: either get in or get out. And also a huge, huge breakthrough in the change that he made in the defensive coordinator spot. And I understand that, the guy that was here formerly had a lot of success and a lot of games.
Right.
But I hearken back to an earlier version, a much earlier version of these broadcasts when Marcus Ray, who has had, say what you want about him. Marcus can be a little bit controversial.
Yes.
This defense is not going to win against the best teams. It's
Yeah.
too gambling. It's too overcommitted. It's too this, it's too that. I think in the end that Marcus Ray was right about that. And you got to the point where, okay, this has got to change. And this has got to be a defense that is flexible enough to cover the not only stop the grinders in Wisconsin and some places like that, but also this all-out air attack of Ohio State and not be so overcommitted. And I was talking to John Jansen for our football preview, which is coming out not too far down the road. And that was one of the first things that he mentioned. And he was kind of, I guess, pretty forthright about it. He says, you're not leaving guys out on an island anymore. You're equipped to go toe to toe with the Ohio States on defense and do these things. And I get it. You'll remind me. Well, what about the playoff game?
What about TCU game?
That's the next step. But
yes.
I just think that they have made themselves more ready to beat Ohio State. And if you beat Ohio State, that opens up all the floodgates.
I go back to when J.J. McCarthy was a senior in high school, okay? And this was when I think this is right post-COVID, and Harbaugh, is he gonna go to the NFL? That was phase one, and it's happened twice. That's another thing that I wish. That's the only negative I have about him is the flirtation and then this whole thing with Ward Manuel and the contract and the commitment and all this stuff. But that's that's still navigationable, whatever, if there is such a word. But JJ McCarthy was so committed and excited about Michigan and excited about playing for Jim Harbaugh after, before his freshman year, when he played quite a bit in the 21 season. And that stood out to me. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is a player's coach. I mean, the ultimate example we talked about a couple of weeks ago, telling Blake Corum, what's best for you is to go to the NFL. I mean, it's best for Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan football program is for him to return. But he's looking out for his players, and you can't fool these young people. I mean, you can't. And I've gone back and forth on Harbaugh. He's quirky. He irks the heck out of me sometimes. I think he's incredibly intelligent. I think he's frightening intelligent. I think his mind, when you go to pressers and he jumps out, he pulls out a play midway third quarter. I think it was the 7:15 mark, and then blah blah blah. He's throwing this stuff out, and I'm looking, I'm like, how does he remember this stuff? I mean, it's uncanny, his mind, and also I think he kind of fixed his approach a little bit, and I'm like I said, well, maybe a year from now when we're talking, I'll think differently. But right now, I'm as excited about all the moving parts going into a Michigan football season as like going back to the '64 when Bobby Timberlake was the quarterback and Mel Anthony was a running back and Bump Elliott was the coach. Okay, that's almost 60 years ago. Okay, 59 years ago. I'm more excited about this team in anticipation. There have been a lot of teams with huge amounts of anticipation, like 76 team and others but this team has so much freaking depth, quality depth, and competition on both sides of the ball and a great coaching staff, how can I not be excited, right?
No question about it. And speaking of 76, Michigan is going to score on its first drive in its first game on a 76-yard touchdown run by Donovan Edwards. Mark it down. You heard it here first. So I'm just throwing that out for the folks. You're going to have a breakaway. You ended the regular season last year with one. I think they're going to open up with one.
So the sea is going to part, and so East Carolina is going to be in cover zero. Nobody in center field. The safeties are rolled up, and he's going to go.
I think Zach Zinter may actually literally eat two of the defensive linemen for the opponents, and Donovan Edwards off to the races. Hey, we waited until the last possible minute in the fourth quarter last week to give a shout out to our sponsor. We're not gonna We're going right there, right after Donovan Edwards scores.
Cheers.
Here we go and say we want to take a moment to shout out the sponsor of our Tuesday night recruiting show and longtime partner of the Wolverine in Lewis Jewelers. Simple question, guys. Is your daughter's engagement ring bigger than your wife's? If the answer is yes, great news. Lewis Jewelers can help. It's stress-free and easy working with one of their non-commissioned expert trusted advisors, finding that perfect diamond. So stop by today, guys, and fix this family issue. Lewis Jewelers, your diamond store and so much more since 1921. Visit them at their new location, 300 South Maple Road, Ann Arbor, or online at lewisjewelers.com. That's LEWISJEWELERS.com. That's Lewis Jewelers, where Ann Arbor gets engaged. And we have been engaged in Michigan football talk here for the first third of this podcast, and we're going to keep it going as far as that's concerned, because at this point in the year, Michigan football fans are already starting to feel it. They're enjoying their summer. They're out on the water. They're playing some golf. They're doing all the various things. But we talked about it last week. We had that one crisp day. It got a little colder, and all of a sudden it felt like, hey, we know what's coming. Yeah. So in making that transfer back to football, here's what I want to know, Tom Crawford. And I think I know your answer to this because we've touched on it in some other ways, but I'm going to ask you again, the riskiest, have you changed your mind about the riskiest road game aside from Penn State for the Wolverines?
And probably people are probably tired of me and worry about that sandwich game, between the Penn State game and the Ohio State game. Penn State on the road and Ohio State at home. That's one on November 18th at Maryland. Okay. So, but I want, and I think that's still a very vulnerable game, but I'll do a side saddle on that one game that maybe at that level. Okay. And no, it's not Michigan State. Well, maybe for a half. And because it means so much to all of us, it might be nerve-wracking for a half. Yeah. But Michigan's going to take care of business in the second half. I have no doubt in my mind. But Matt Rule's coaching at Nebraska now. Okay, so you're dealing with something, and that's the first road game. There's a couple of caveats to that. First road game, okay, and tough environment, albeit tougher at night. And you've been covering for the Wolverine.com out there. I mean, you know what it's like. And that last road game that Michigan had at Nebraska, that Saturday night game, was an absolute root canal of a game. It was an exciting game if you didn't care who won, but it was brutal to watch if you had something at stake like we do. But so Matt Rule is on, and I'll just throw this nugget out. Going back to our conversation about the TCU game, didn't TCU run a 3.35, if I'm not mistaken, that Michigan thought they were going to be able to take care of, and it didn't really happen?
Yeah, they ran it better and quicker and more effective than any 3.35 we've ever seen at Michigan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Matt Rule loves a 3.35. Okay, so Nebraska's going to be running a 3.35. Okay, and so I'll say that, let me throw that one out. There's that would be the other, because it's a road game and the 3.35 and the Matt Rule, you don't know what you're dealing with. a new coach to the program. You know how that goes.
Oh,
And
yeah, I do. So much so that we don't discuss these questions, these answers beforehand.
no, hell
That's
no.
why you stole that right out of my little cheat sheet, because I, I was anticipating you going with the Terrapins, and I was going to
Yeah,
counter with Nebraska for some of the reasons that you mentioned. That is just, Michigan has a tough time with the
yeah,
Cornhuskers. They go to Lincoln, and it is a very tough place to play, especially when it's a night game. We'll see what happens with that one. But I'm telling you what, when I look at Maryland and I get the trap game thing, I think about that. I'm just thinking Michigan hasn't had that tough a time with Maryland.
no, they haven't. But
You
but
know,
that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't happen. Now, the other
it.
thing I want to go back to your Husker thing, and part of the reason I did that because I didn't want I was trying to give another counter to my still my principal concern is Maryland. So I threw the Nebraska nugget out to you. But how much of the first road game
Oh, it's huge.
ingredient do you think there's now? Last year's first road game, Michigan handled that pretty good, and they went to a really tough environment at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City. Okay, but do you think this is a veteran team? Okay, do you think that's even going to be an issue or not?
Well, I don't. It shouldn't be the deciding issue, but I think it will be a mitigating issue for Nebraska and being able to hang with Michigan for a while. I mean, that crowd, you have to get back into that mode of playing in front of that kind of a crowd. And when I am going to concede to Tom Crawford here for a minute, just for a second on schedule. When you're playing a schedule where you ought to beat the 3 non-conference opponents by 21 points plus, and then you get Rutgers at
Yeah,
home opener, and then you go on the road to Nebraska, you
exactly.
you may be set up for a little bit more of a punch in the mouth early,
Yeah,
and a little bit more of a, okay, boys, we got to dig in. And if something breaks poorly early, say you drop the ball, say you leave the ball on the turf, and Nebraska gets an easy 6, then all of a sudden that place just explodes, and here we go. So I think that all of that factors in.
yeah, I do too. So let's just say I think we'll be relieved a little bit when that game is done. Because of the the I mean, Michigan's first of all, those first 4 games, they're gonna, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, who they haven't played anybody," and at least Nebraska, you got the road aspect to it, and then you got to come back. I thought you might go with Minnesota on that as far as another team to consider because now you've conquered the Nebraska thing, but then you got to come back and go on the road again. Um, I don't, PJ Fleck, real excitable guy, and get his team all revved up. I quite honestly, full disclosure, I'm not real savvy on a lot of the personnel. I got to dig into it on the Gophers, but I know they lost a few players. But what do you feel about Minnesota?
Sink the boat. I don't know. I think PJ Fleck is a good coach. I think Michigan has more firepower. I think it's got too much for Minnesota to handle. You will have had, yes, it's the second straight road game, but at the same time, they'll be more in the mode of, hey, we did this. We know what's coming. We're gonna jump right into it. Business trip. We'll take care of it. I don't know. I don't get a big sense of trepidation over facing the Gophers out there. We'll see. It's not going to be, shouldn't be too cold or anything like that. So I like Michigan's chances in that game, and I certainly like Michigan's chances in all of its home games, which leads me to the next topic, which is, do you see a trap game for the Wolverines at home this year? You've talked trap game in terms of Maryland on the road, but is before the Buckeyes, that is, that's a different category altogether. But pre OSU, is there a trap game for Michigan at home?
No. Are you kidding me?
All right.
Look at that schedule. Pull up that schedule. I mean, come on. I mean, John. I mean, East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers at home. Okay, Indiana and Purdue. I mean, did you pose the question just to get a chuckle from the audience? Was that the objective of why you did that?
Hey, look at all I'm gonna say is, you talk about 1976, you talk about
Yeah.
1986, you talk about some of the all-time
But
heartbreak.
those are road, like 76, they lost at Purdue on
Yeah,
the road.
I
Okay.
get,
So it's those road,
it,
muggings, if you will,
it,
that takes place.
yeah. I just, if somebody can hang with Michigan at home, who knows? Maybe Indiana catches fire. Maybe Purdue does something, and
Whole new system, whole new players. I mean,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
nothing about Purdue. I
My
zero.
no as well. Just for the record.
But
So,
I know Tom Allen. Tom Allen is one of the top 10 hot seat coaches. Like, he's got to deliver. I mean, and I know some Pat Fitzgerald. I saw something that he's like the number one hot seat guy. Pat Fitzgerald, Mr. Northwestern.
I
Uh,
don't. Not
yeah,
sure.
I don't believe that, but
I
Tom Allen might be out.
yeah,
Tom Allen might be throwing Hail Marys to try to see if he can pull this thing out, because I don't. If he sputters again, he might be out of Bloomington.
for Pat Fitzgerald to be on the hot seat, it would mean there would have to be the potential for a hot seat, and that would mean there would have to be football expectations at Northwestern. I'm not
Great
buying.
analogy. Very,
I'm,
very good. Excellent.
so okay. Let's do some rapid fires here and talk about some personnel. Your offensive MVP. This might be an obvious one, although you got some backs besides the quarterback that might factor in there.
Well, I'm going to stick to what you probably figure I'm going. I mean, you could, you talk about offensive MVP. I mean, you could say Drake Nugent could probably the transfer. My God, what we're hearing about how good and what we know about him, and Ladarius Henderson, all these guys. I mean, you can go in the line, you can go wide out, and obviously you can go a very talented tight end and Colson Loveland and the two stellar running backs. I'm going to go with J.J. McCarthy. He is going to have an incredible year, barring injury.
Yeah.
I kid you not. He's going to be in New York City. Might not win the Heisman, but he's going to be a candidate to win the Heisman. You heard it here first.
Well, and you'll hear it here second as well, because I just see JJ McCarthy is in such a tremendous position right now to take advantage of not only all the hard work that he's put in, but all the hard work that other people have put in. You look at that offensive line, it is absolutely stacked. I don't know if you saw the videos that have been out recently of Zach Zinter when he was absolutely throwing guys around on the same play.
Oh, yeah.
Right, boom, he turns to his left, he throws another guy, and those holes he opened up at Ohio State. This is JJ McCarthy has some big studs in front of him on the offensive line. He's got two backs that could both start for any team in the Big Ten, in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. He's got receivers, he's got the tight ends. I just think that he has got all of that experience. I mean, you saw Jim Harbaugh and these coaches work J.J. McCarthy into the lineup, even as a true freshman. And people were saying, maybe you should have more, or maybe you should do this or do that. But then you saw it really bloom last year as he took advantage of his opportunities, became the quarterback. And now he's got everything. He's played in Columbus. He will not have a tougher road venue. He had the disappointment of that playoff game and throwing a couple of pick sixes. He will have the motivation and the all the things that he learned through that experience to take onto the field this year. I think the kid is going to be really terrific, as you say.
Yes.
He stays healthy, and You have to hope for that. And he, I'm assuming he is going to show the kind of savvy that will help keep him healthy and get down when he needs to.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk defensive MVP.
Oh, this one is way well. Maybe it's as difficult as offense because there's so many pieces of arsenal in that defense that could earn it. And I'm not just throwing names out to throw them out, but I mean there's a lot of candidates, including Ernest Hausman, the transfer from Nebraska, who could who I think is going to have a great year. And I mean Chris Jenkins, we're super excited about him. He's what a great kid he is. But I'm going to go with Charles Woodson Jr. Okay. He's number
Okay.
two. He's Will Johnson, also known as Will Johnson. I think Will Johnson's going to have a Charles Woodson-esque 1997 type season where it's going to jump out at you how incredibly talented this guy is. And once again, all this stuff is qualified on staying healthy, and there's not any nagging injuries or anything that there seems to be on this team a lot of a little fixing up, or if somebody's nagging injuries off spring ball, and there's cleanup work and the surgical, cleaning up a knee, cleaning up this and that and all that stuff. And so I'm just under the premise that everything's going to be cleaned up and everybody's healthy to go and can stay that way. I mean, come on, Will Johnson. How do you go against that? How?
I don't necessarily go against it in the spirit in which you put it forth and in the wisdom with which you put it forth.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I'm going with somebody else.
Okay.
Going with a guy that I say will lead this team in tackles, but do a whole lot more than that. The tackles end of it is somewhat tied to position, but I think this young man is going to take the next step for the Wolverines. I believe the defensive MVP, your defensive MVP for 2023 is going to be Junior Colson right there in the middle of the defense.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I really think that he is prepared, and the way the people I've talked to say he's prepared to take it up a notch. Yes, he's been in the right positions. He's played since he was a true freshman. He knows how to make the plays. He knows how to run the defense, but he can do more. I think he's been challenged to do more, and I think he's challenged himself to do more. So I'm going to keep a real close eye on Junior Colson, not just from running up some big numbers in tackles, but also making some of the key plays that really make a difference, and being able to rush the quarterback and being able to pick off that tip pass or tip the pass that gets picked off. Those kinds of things that could really help him to take it up a notch. And I'm going to go to the next one. Our next category is biggest breakthrough player on offensive defense. I'm going to switch it and go to defense first. And I want to give my answer because you have already mentioned this young man. I'm calling number two that we have talked about, Will Johnson, your biggest breakthrough player on defense.
Okay.
Maybe not but he didn't play a ton in the first half of last season. They really, on a measured basis, worked him in. And I talked to him for our football preview, and he said, yeah, they wanted to sprinkle me in, but he was at his best at the end of the season. I wouldn't call it a breakthrough year because of, the limited action he saw early in the year. But to me, he is going to have the sort of start to finish breakthrough year that will really establish himself as the star on this team. And obviously you feel the same because you've got him as the team MVP. What about the breakthrough player on defense in Tom Crawford's estimation?
Okay. This is a little bit, he's not, when I say breakthrough, he's not going to break through and be an alpha dog out there and get all this attention, but he's going to fulfill a supportive role, which I think is going to be a trademark of this defense. I think this Michigan defense, the reason I'm super excited about is because there's so much depth to plug and play, so you don't have guys playing out there with their tongues hanging out, if you know what I mean. Like
Sure.
Junior Colson, wearing him down. Okay, this guy plays the Mike linebacker behind him. He's Jimmy Rolder. Okay, he's number 30, who played on the special teams a lot last year, and I remember him down in the Big Ten championship game. When Michigan got ahead, so you start zeroing in on players and you're trying to think of who's playing well, and things like that. And he's always in position. He's fundamentally a sound. He wears number 30, and he reminds me of a player who played a different position on defense, but he wore number 30, Brad Cochran, who played in the secondary back in the 80s, mid 80s, where he's always in position. Jimmy Roller's that kind of a player. We're in the same number 30. So I just think he's gonna be filling in the gaps, giving everybody, as these defensive, all three levels are gonna be rotations where you're gonna get more personnel. I mean, yeah, we got 11 starters, but there's gonna be 16, 18, 20 guys on that defense that are playing prominent roles. So guys aren't gassed, and Jimmy Roller is gonna be one of those fill-in guys that's going to come out of, people don't even probably know much about Jimmy Roller. They're going to know more about him this year. That's my.
All right. I like it. I really like it. They're going to need linebackers. They picked one up, as you already alluded to, and Ernest Hausman. They've got great experience in the projected starting spots, but there is room. You need a fourth guy in that depth chart, and it looks like it will be Jimmy Roller. All right. Well, we're starting to get into that fourth quarter that where we have to shine. We hold up the four fingers and say, Sharon Moore gonna be handling the offensive play calling. He's no co-offensive coordinator. I mean, he's gonna be flipping the switches. Does he flip him in a way that opens things up a little bit earlier on this offense than you saw a year ago? You do. We mentioned JJ McCarthy. He has all that experience from last year. You're not worried about him so much as a passing quarterback. Not that you ever were, but until you've done it consistently at this level against top competition, there was a sense that maybe they were bringing him along and, pounding it out. More often than not. Do you think things get opened up earlier this year?
Yeah, remember we the buzz came out. Oh, Matt Weiss, have his offensive coordinators, and Matt Weiss was the red zone coordinator. Remember that buzz was going around that. I don't know if it was validated or not, but I just don't like the co-coordinator thing concept. I can't rationalize how that works. You got your running game coordinator. I understand that in terms of building your game plan during the week, but I mean, calling plays. I mean, one guy, and this is the guy. When Harbaugh talks, I tend to listen lately, especially, and when he talks about Sharon Moore, it's like, good Lord. He thinks this guy walks on water. That carries a lot with me. He's got a lot of respect for him, and he's going to give him a lot of latitude in decision making, I would think. And I just think you're going to see more efficiency in the red zone. That was a nightmare last year in the red zone. It was, and then all of a sudden, the gimmickry that whatever we had to go through with the Philly special that went bad. In the TCU game that turned that game in the negative direction that it went early on. I don't think that stuff's going to happen. I think you're going to see more creative play calling with more wide receiver involvement and aerial game more involved in that. The Mario Manningham era that we saw when he was a target in the red zone in 2005 and 6. That's what I think we're going to see from Sharon Moore. He's awesome. I'm super excited. I think this might be if Michigan wins a national championship, I think I think he goes on to a head coaching job. Maybe other people too. JJ McCarthy's going to go on. I mean, it's just me. That's fine. Go win a national championship, and everything else will take care of itself. But This
Yep.
guy is is right in that position on the threshold of being an outstanding Power Five head football coach.
As Lloyd Carr used to say, when you win, there's enough for everybody.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so there you go.
You're
Hey,
right.
you're talking about the specialization about red zone offensive coordinator and this and that. I'm gonna just put it out there that that I won a contest and they made me offensive fourth quarter offensive coordinator against Ohio State the past 2 years. So how'd I do?
You did good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's if you're going to claim a specialization on these last couple of years, you just tell
Yeah,
them, yeah, I was fourth quarter offensive coordinator against
yeah,
OSU.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of did all right there. All right. Now, as far as answering that question itself, though, I really wonder if you're going to see a big opening up of this offense until the latter, the back half of the season again, because you don't need to throw the ball around much to win the first 3 games. And then you got Rutgers, don't necessarily need it there. Then you're on the road where they button things down a little more in those first 2 games back to back. I just, I'll believe it when I see it. When you've got that offensive line, when you got Blake Corum, when you got Donovan Edwards, I have my doubts. But the talk around the program is, yeah, we'll open it up more earlier. So we're going to see that. And we are now, before we go, we're going to see what Tom's take is. It's time for to turn it over to one Mr. Crawford and just bring whatever's on your mind, my friend.
Well, we've been hanging out too much together, John, because like we're reading each other's minds. You led me right where I wanted to go with your last comment about offensive approach, and I think the key to this season is, believe it or not, with obviously staying healthy, but how Michigan approaches those first 4 home games. Okay, and what are you trying to accomplish in those first 4 road games? Well, you want wins, you want to keep everybody healthy, but I would like to see an aggressive approach where offensively, where the aerial, I don't care what the score is. I mean, the first half, you can score as much as you want. You're not going to run it up the score. Just attack things offensively and not just chunk plays offensively through the running game because they're there, because your offensive line is so dominant over East Carolina and UNLV and BG. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, but I think it's critical that they take those 3, group of 5 inferior opponent games and do something to productively prepare for later in the season. I'm not smart to figure out what it is, but just be more aggressive offensively and get the precision down in that aerial game. I think that's my concern early on in the season. What are they getting done when you got 3, cupcakes jumping out of the chute?
All right. You won't necessarily delineate exactly what it is, but you'll know it when you see it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you expect out of those games? I mean, I'm asking you, John. I know we're running out of time, but what are you expecting out of that? What's going to be a good day? What's a good day?
3 best things that Michigan can get out of its first 3 games, or really first 4 games, because you can
Rutgers, you lump them in, it's all the same.
You stay healthy. You get
that.
as many people on the field as you can possibly get, especially ones that are going to have to help you down farther down in the season, and you build confidence through a dominant offense and defense that you don't. I remember Gary Moeller saying, we don't want to go out there and slop around. Well, you don't want to go out there and slop around in terms of, okay, you're getting to late in the first half and say one of these non-conference teams is staying with you, or Rutgers takes a 3-point lead going into the half. Yeah. You don't want that. You want to be dominant. You want to establish it early. You want that sense that we're gonna blow people out like Ohio State blows people out all year long until it gets to Michigan.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
So I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. Hey, Tom Crawford, excellent job as always. Fun to crank these out every week. Make sure you join us each week on the Wolverine Live. We are going to take, we'll tell you this, we're going to take the next couple of weeks off.
Yes.
Enjoy your holidays, enjoy your vacation, and come back to us in 3 weeks, and we will have a big time football show for you and throw in some basketball. We'll see how all of that goes. Remember to stop into Lewis Jewelers and give our sponsors some love as well. So, Tom, appreciate it. And we will again second week of July.
Yeah, July. Just think about this, John. That will be July 11th. Okay, that will be like 2 weeks from Big Ten Media Day. We're gonna be humming, maybe. I mean, it's gonna be great. So we'll take a nice break here, and always a pleasure being on here with you, JB, and looking forward to gearing things up as we approach hopefully an outstanding season for the Michigan Wolverines.
Absolutely.